Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, here with Jay Campbell, as always. And tonight, we're very excited and very honored to have our special guest tonight. Robert, he doesn't need introduction anywhere in the civilized world. Of course, this is our good friend and always interesting Robert Stanley. Welcome back, Robert. Nice to see you again, my friend.
Yes, live long and prosper.
And you as well.
I just got a message here. This is pretty wild, guys. Sorry to be distracted, but
no worries.
I have a real job. Okay. And I'm going to let you know what it is because it's about to get a lot more interesting.
Oh,
and
my.
it's a very interesting kind of dovetail to what I've been doing on the internet in that I'm here to help in any capacity that I can. What I found when I was here in Hong Kong, things are so expensive that I needed to get a job. I mean, I would have done it anyway, but I mean, I really needed at some point the family. I couldn't just hang out at the house and do my own thing.
Right.
Because Unicus is not really a money maker. I do that to make a difference, not a lot of money. Yep. But I got a job editing factory audits. These reports are essential for corporations to know exactly what's going on in the factories. It lowers their liability somewhat, but it also protects the people that work in the factories from abuse. It also protects the environment to some degree because there's oversight. Now, this is relatively new, and they call it social compliance. There's actually a few different names for it, but just to let you know, I've been doing this for a few years. I have looked at over 10,000. I mean, not just looked at, I've corrected over 10,000 factory audit reports from around Asia and mostly Southeast Asia. I've become an expert in the field of social compliance. I wasn't looking for this. It just came to me. I mean, it does pay the bills. But I was really wondering, why am I doing this? You know, I mean, why would I have to learn? And look, when you think about, look around you, everything you see came out of a factory, which means that there were people with families that worked really hard in that factory in order to manufacture all this stuff. So, and they typically work really long hours, and they're not always under the best conditions. And the regulations that have come along in order to protect them and the planet are enormous. We're talking hundreds of regulations that you have to comply with in order to run a factory legally. Of course, there's those that do it illegally, and there's always people who violate things. Anyway, this is what these auditing services do, and this is how I'm trying to tell you that I've had this feeling like, one of the things about the Force, as we were talking about off the air, it's once you've tapped into the cosmos, it's like a spider's web. You can feel things that are happening. And, it was demonstrated in the Star Wars movies that the Jedi always kind of had a feeling what was going to happen next.
Profound.
Yeah. So and some people say it's psychic or whatever, but anyway, I had a feeling I was being trained to do this for something else other than just editing the reports, because that by itself, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. All right. So I saw myself moving into another position where I could actually make a difference in this field of social compliance. And I just got confirmation it's going to happen. They're hiring me. I'm going to be hired by a major corporation in order to be a consultant. Well, okay. Like I said, I didn't see this coming. It may not seem like a big deal to you guys, or maybe this audience is just like, why is he even saying this? The reason is a lot of people on this planet are still suffering. They are basically slave laborers to some degree. It's gotten better, but there are places where they literally do take advantage of people just like you and me that really have no choice. They go there and they have to work these crazy hours, and they're usually being poisoned slowly. Industrial disease, it's real, and it's not cool. And so I feel badly for these people. And now I'm being given a chance to actually do something. Jedi Bob stepping into the factory world, what they call global sourcing, I think is the buzzword for this. Because obviously every factory has to pull from different places in order to get stuff. But it's logistically, it's pretty involved. But the bottom line is, I'm actually being given an opportunity to do good, to help
to make a huge
these
difference.
people.
That's
I hope
powerful.
so.
That's powerful, Robert. Congratulations. And on that note, just I know when you hear this, it gives you encouragement. Bobby Bittman is back, says that Robert Stanley was the guy that got it all started for me. Awesome guest. So I wanted to make sure that you heard that from Bobby, Robert.
Oh my God.
I think a lot of people can say that though, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So I've told you guys, thanks. I've told you guys my story about saving that one boy's life, but there was actually 3 people back in the 80s, 2 younger boys, and 1 man, younger man about my age. And I always wondered about that. I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat again. And I feel like that it kind of continued on from there. I mean, it's not like I'm physically helping, saving people. I think it's more of an intellectual, spiritual something or other. I'm giving them the tools or some insight that they need in order to pull themselves out of this trap, the matrix, or whatever you want, whatever this mess is that we're in.
Right.
That's my motivation anyway. I mean, it doesn't always work. I'm sure of it. And that's where I need to go next with you guys. And I am sorry that the last time we all got together, I was talking about Babaji and Yogananda and that whole Anunnaki lineage. Unfortunately, I was convinced of what I was saying at that time. However, I have, over a period of time after we did the last interview, I started to realize there was just something nagging at me that I needed to investigate deeper. Something just didn't feel right, didn't add up. So I did. And what I found out was that Babaji is a fictional character. That book that I was promoting, which is total nonsense. It's mostly fiction and a lot of hype. And it's serving the dark side. Unfortunately, it's promoting the dark overlords are very good at manipulating us by pretending there's something they're not, you know, and in essence, the old saying, the wolf in the sheep's clothing.
Well, that's the meaning of this shirt, Robert. That's exactly what's going on.
Well, look, I'm sure, as we've talked before, that Yeshua was a real person and he had a real purpose for being here. However, that has been distorted badly over time by the dark forces and created like a pseudo Jesus that basically suits their purpose or their agenda. And so the same is true for this Babaji character, a savior, as if we need another one. Right? And Yogananda was not what he, and I don't even know that he was pretending it to be like this. It's like L. Ron Hubbard, for example. We know for a fact the guy was a dirtbag, but the church that he created, they went on to create this incredible persona or facade around this mythical character of L. Ron Hubbard. Their version does not comport with reality. The same is true for Yogananda and so many of these other so-called spiritual leaders, and even some researchers in this field of alternative media, right? Yeah, don't name names, please. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. They're not authentic, and what they're saying is not accurate. Now, here's the problem, though. They believe it.
Right.
Because they believe it, then it becomes contagious, and other people believe it. So, the reason I need to clarify this matter is because I did receive a lot of email from people after doing the show, this particular show about Yogananda and Babaji and the Anunnaki and all that stuff. And I need to apologize for that. And also just to clarify, I'm not really thrilled about this, but I know it's part of a process of waking up. Everything needs to be revealed now.
Right.
Everything. Everybody has to just lay their cards on the table. This is just part of the waking up process. It's how things are going to be healed because they are being revealed. That's the big thing here right now.
Absolutely. Very well stated, Robert. And I appreciate your integrity, for stepping out and not just trying to sweep it under the rug. I think if we all behaved with such integrity, it'd be a better world. So I salute you for being willing to do that. I think Jay feels exactly the same way.
Well, I mean, Jeff, I think it's important that all of us in this community, especially who are trying to be tip of the spear in so many ways, when we realize that we've been duped or we figure something out that we, originally associated as being part of the truth, we have to come clean. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, you have to be honest and transparent and authentic, or else, how is anybody ever going to even talk to you or reach out to you or continue to connect with you? You just don't look to be the person that you really are if you're not able to fall on your sword when it's necessary. And I appreciate Robert doing that well. I mean, you have to do it. What else can we do? It's like Robert said, we're in a matrix. We're literally in a ruse, in a riddle, wrapped inside an enigma. I mean, how do you really determine what is and what isn't?
And on that same line, I think a person that is still saying the same things and still believing the same things that they did 5, 6, 7 years ago, that may indeed be an indication that there's not much growth going on in that person.
Yeah. Well, the timing, though, I think is what part of the reason why the dark forces were using me, tricking me into tricking other people. But when I recognized it, at first I was mad, and then I realized, wait a minute, this is actually a good thing. This is part of the healing process. It actually made me stronger, and it exposed them even further. So, back in 2011, when I was mentally, telepathically connecting with the benevolent beings that I feel that we are all family connected to, even though they're not always here or on the internet with us, I do feel their presence. I call them angelic hosts or whatever. I don't care. Mm-hmm. But I came up against this whole thing about the demonic parasites, the Archon, and I really mentally, spiritually, I hit a roadblock. So I was asking them could you please give me some clarity? It seemed like a pretty simple request.
Right.
And over a period of the next few weeks, it really started to come together. I could see where I was getting assistance and guidance. It was very subtle but profound at the same time, and so what happened was that's when I first started reporting on it. As they gave me the clarity, I just passed it on to other people. And it really started the snowball down the hill. But that was part of a bigger project that they've been doing. The benevolent beings have been, they're watching us and they're assisting us. They're not going to do all of it for us. There's certain things that we have to do for ourselves. All right. So a couple of years later after that, I said, like, okay, I get it. I know, I see the problem very clearly now, but what's the solution? How do you resolve this? Because I don't think we can do it for ourselves entirely.
Right.
So they showed me, and it's the same thing. I was sitting in the exact same place and I was making this spiritual mental connection. And the images started just flooding into my mind of these waves of energy washing over the planet and people waking up and some of them freaking out and like dying of heart attacks and stuff, or just losing their minds, because everything, all the lies that we've all been peeling back the layers of the onion of the matrix. But everybody, even people who are not interested in this at all, were going to be shown exactly what it all is about.
Yeah. That's what's happening right now for sure.
And it's happening now. And this is part. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because on November 11th, the scientists were baffled that the whole entire planet was shaking for 20 minutes by some outside force of waves or whatever. And that's not the only time that's happened. All right. So since 2013, what they showed me has been happening, and it is still happening. It's in the news all the time now. We see it. Everything is being revealed.
It's true. Well, on that note, Robert.
Yeah.
And Jeff and I have been going back and forth on this, and we're both in the same camp now from a standpoint of what we think is going on. But at this point, and again, I don't want to make this a political discussion, but I just want your insights, because you do have profound insights.
And a little bit of objectivity that we don't have probably too, just by virtue of distance.
Is Donald Trump being played by both sides right now?
Yeah, everybody that's a president is vulnerable. You just have to expect that. Yeah. Even if you have the best of intentions going in, there's no way you can uphold all the problems. Look at every time he pushes, he says, I want the military to do this. Right. And then there's this pushback. They're like, because you're dealing with so many different people, and there's two very distinct forces there that are at odds with each other. So, the thing for me is, I know the Constitution was provided to the founders by the benevolent beings as a roadmap.
There's no doubt.
Okay. So, but we've the dark forces want us to deviate away from that, supposedly for our own good. They always try and sell it like that. That there's no equity in it. It's only for old white guys and stuff like that is silly, or sexist or whatever. That racist, sexist, all that nonsense is just it's all about divide and conquer, and it's been working.
Yeah,
not that I have anything against old white guys, Robert.
But it doesn't represent the whole planet. And besides, it's not about the color of your skin or your sex or your whatever. It's about who you the integrity of your soul and how well connected you are to the rest of creation. And, basically this is part of what was shown to me that blew my mind. They said everything had to be revealed in order for people to make good choices. Because if you like they were lying to me last summer, and then here I go ahead and just repeat the lie, thinking it's reality. Now that's a very dangerous thing, but it's permitted. Okay, I think it's part of the learning process here, is for us to be able to discern at some point between what is real and what isn't. It's very challenging, you guys. I mean, you know this.
Oh yeah.
Right. And we have a higher degree of responsibility as public figures in the alternative media. So we have to actually vet things even more carefully, I think, before and occasionally we screw up, okay? Or we were misled. And that was what I was trying to say. Everybody has been lied to at different levels along the way in this life here in this crazy matrix. So as everything is revealed, there's a major choice or major choices we have to make going forward. As do we want to participate in this insanity, serving the dark side, or not? And if not, then how do we proceed? It's pretty profound.
Do you believe, if you're, the last time you and I spoke personally one-on-one, it was before our last podcast together when you were talking about the Maori shaman that you
Yep.
And that was some profound intel that was revealed to you. Do you believe that this is still kind of the year where we're going to have just a dramatic open up, drop everything into the public eye and people are going to have to discern for themselves?
Yeah, but this is where the benevolence is obvious. When I talked to him recently, I had him on my show. He told me off the air that, because I was telling him, I said, man, how can the planet shake for 20 minutes and there isn't massive destruction? And he said, well, it was supposed to happen that way.
Oh, wow.
There was a third of the population was supposed to get wiped out.
Fantastic stuff.
But there were some negotiations that went on in order for this to be more gradual, the transition. There's always turbulence and turmoil when you go through a transition point. And the thing is, 10 years seems like a long time to us, but it's nothing. It's like nothing when you're talking about these immortal interdimensional beings, which we're all, like I said, we're all that, but we've been kind of cut off from it. But the rest of our family don't have the impediment that we do. And they look at things on a much larger scale, a long-term scale. So these plans, they know it'll work, but they also know that it takes time. It's like, especially when you're really ill, you can't just shock the patient too much. Otherwise it's going to pass away. So this is a process, but there is a date certain. This is another reason I'm bringing this up, is to help people be prepared for the fact that it's going to get worse. The dark side is going to become more desperate and more transparent. And a lot of people are going to flip out in the next couple of years. And that's something else the shaman told me, is that actually you can hear the whole interview with him at unicusmagazine.com and just scroll down the page. You can link to it there. You've got his picture up. He's doing
What's
a
the name of the
webinar.
interview, Robert?
His name is Mauta Kumara.
Okay.
It's recently, right? In the last couple of weeks,
right? A couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I took a break over the holiday. But anyway, there's some good interviews on that page. But he talks about how the Anunnaki have agreed to relinquish control at the highest level. But if you recall, like in World War II, when the Japanese surrendered, how there was these stay behind guys, the individuals that they didn't get the message, or they just couldn't believe it. Right. And so they're fighting to the death, like 10, 15.
That's where we're at now.
It's a lot like that. Yeah. There's some people that are very resistant. And ultimately, part of the vision that was shown to me in 2013 is there was going to be people like us that would, once, even after everything had been revealed to them, they were still going to choose to serve the dark side. and that we had to be not only prepared for that, but to honor their decision.
Isn't it almost a sort of programmed amnesia because they've been serving that side for so long and disillusioned that they don't even know better? Like when the yoke is taken off their neck, they still are a slave.
Yeah, it's sort of like a bird that's been in a cage too long. You open the door and it doesn't even think about flying out.
And I think there's more to it too, Jay and Robert. And this is, perhaps my mea culpa, and also a warning to other people about the same time, Robert, that you were going through the thing with the Baba G people. I myself fell under what I now identify as a very powerful spell that was put upon me, and I should have known better. And it was put upon me, I think, through a person that of their own will and volition was innocent, but they were someone that was used by other forces to bring me under a spell, to get me off track, to get me off of this work. And those
Thank
of us,
God he had me.
Thank God I had Jay. Didn't listen to him. But those of us that are involved in this work, not only are we held to a higher standard, Robert, we also are sometimes targets as well. So it behooves us to be very vigilant and very diligent, and not to react and to react just like you did, not with vengeance or with anger, but to say, oops, I messed up and it's time to correct and move on.
Yeah, it's kind of sad though when I get, like the other day, I got some emails from people that were saying, "Oh, it's so wonderful you're talking about Yogananda and Babaji, and how much they love those characters."
Right.
I'm in the unenviable position of gently saying to these people, "I'm sorry, that was a mistake. It's not it's all a lie."
Right.
Based on fiction, and it's all designed to mislead us. So
it's not easy to say you were wrong, but like Robert, I was wrong.
We're all wrong.
I apologize, and here we are.
Yeah. Look, when you go into a classroom, the way that we actually learn is from our mistakes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. There are no mistakes. They're learning experiences.
Well, yeah. Well, right now I'm learning another language, and so I'm not only learning it. There's a process. There's a certain process, like even if you only do like 5-10 minutes a day, it's better if you do it in the morning and the evening.
Right. That's when your brain's more plastic. Yeah.
Yes. And also so what you're doing is you're creating neural pathways. It's like, think about it. If you're cutting a path through the forest, waited 2 weeks, well, it's probably going to be, like a lot of overgrowth. But if you do it every day a little bit, then it becomes pretty clear. Right. So it's something that we have to work at. But the process too is also from people who are linguists and professors and stuff, they say, don't be afraid to make a mistake. It's in our nature to feel embarrassed and whatever.
Right.
But that's really how it becomes deeply ingrained in your psyche, is when you screw it up and you go, oh yeah, I know it was that word. And then you go, next time it comes up, you go, oh yeah, that's it. And now it's ingrained in there. So it probably won't fall out anytime soon. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's fascinating that you just brought that up, because I was talking to somebody today that I was not doing a podcast with, but we were talking via Zoom.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning in that way, I feel like one of the major attacks, and I think you've spoken about this before, Robert, and I know obviously Jeff and I speak about this often, one of the attacks is on the educational system.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so overt now that like the average under 22, under 25-year-old kid has no ability to change money. Meaning if you buy something for 10, 12 bucks or something like that, and you hand them, let's say, and this just happened to my wife and I, but we bought something for $6.72 and we gave the person $10, and that person was at least 20 to 22 years old. They had absolutely zero ability or idea on how to calculate change or even to change it. She started to pull out her phone and use a calculator. I was like, but it's sad, but when you have these conversations with people throughout the United States, and I would presume it's globally, everybody has stories like this. So what they've done is, again, and this is not an affront to any generation that's millennial or Generation Z or Generation Y, but they have trained these folks to not rely on their critical thinking skills, Robert, and to use technology to do everything. And so now that part of the brain has been shut off.
We're cut off from the force, aren't we, Robert?
There you go.
Yes, right. And yeah, it's not something for just Jedi. Obviously, anybody and everyone should have a fundamental understanding of how to reconnect because we've been cut off intentionally for us, some of us for many lifetimes.
Yes.
It's going to be a process. And again, that's going to be really shocking for people when they do reconnect, or as we all reconnect. See, that's the thing. I think temporarily everybody's going to reconnect because these waves of energy are breaking down these barriers, the lies, the firewall, whatever you want to call it, of the matrix, and it's exposing us to the cosmos and or force, whatever you want to call it, which is consciousness. And it's not just raising our consciousness. It's not like we're ascending. We're just reconnecting and reestablishing our divine birthright, which is awesome. Okay, I mean, it truly is awesome. I know Hollywood, perverts and distorts everything. And in fact, that's, what I say about Star Wars, it's art imitating life. They took reality and they distorted it. But yeah, the Force is something that we come from and that we return to. And it's neutral as far as gender or religion or anything like that. But it is dependent on the individual. In other words, it doesn't impose itself on you. You have to choose to connect with it and follow whatever steps are necessary for you as an individual. It's not a one size fits all. It's a very customized, unique thing. How you, as an individual, a unique individual, connect with the cosmos.
Absolutely. And circling back to what Jay identified about, think of what you said, Jay, on a spiritual and on a level of an analogy. People have become unable to make change. The people have become unable to make change.
Exactly.
In their lives, in the world, right? Wow.
Right.
That's very good. Thank you, Jeff.
No, but it's absolutely the truth. I mean,
blind nut, squirrel, every now and then, blind squirrel.
No, but Jeff, that was a profound statement. Robert, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
We're always getting this question on our show, and Jeff and I have, not battled back and forth on it because we want to believe in good. Is there any possibility that any of the quote unquote cabal figures, and I don't need to mention names, is anybody actually going to go down in this lifetime, meaning in the next 3 to 4 years?
It's all going to come down.
Are going to be arrested, and that we will see this publicly.
I don't think they're going to just be arrested. I think they're going to be taken off the planet. You've seen, I sent you the link to my Jedi message. I know a lot of people think that's just me goofing around, but it's honestly what I feel is going to happen. Here's what it is. Let's just play it out. A scenario. It's a big what if. The benevolent beings show up. What would be the criteria? What are their requirements in order for them to actually restore sanity and life, a true life, sustainable life to this world? There's going to be some basic things that have to change. Now, the duality that exists here it's a slow form of suicide, and it's unsustainable. So that's why if they're going to intervene, a lot of things are going to change. And just putting bad guys in the prison is not going to stop the dark side from. So you could take somebody, let's just say George Soros, and put him in prison. The dark side will just pick another puppet,
right,
and
point.
Manipulate them. You see, it's like in the Matrix. You know how the agents, they could just jump from one person to the next.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen. When it has to be something far more profound. And I was being interviewed yesterday, and I think I got to repeat this. Our language is inadequate to fully describe what's coming. And even though we're returning to our roots, it's so different than everything that we've been doing here for, let's say, the last 5,000-6,000 years or something. Right. However long the dark side has been in control, they've gradually distorted everything, including our language. They've dumbed it down for sure. We know that, and so we're going to have to learn new ways of communication, new definitions for reality and who we are in that. I could just use words that it doesn't really, they're inadequate. Like I said, miraculous, phenomenal, whatever. It's not going to actually tell you what's coming.
Yeah.
It's just, let's just put it this way. When we talk about good versus evil, I think of it more as one is a state of health, and the other state is illness.
Yeah.
Exactly. One is resonant, the other one is dissonant.
Yes.
It's pretty simple in that
That's
regard.
Balance and
exactly
imbalance.
where we are in the world right now. You have either people that take care of their physical vessel, or those that are enslaved by the GMO food, the pharmaceutical crap that they give people 10, 15 pills a day, smoking cigarettes, over-consuming sugar, over-consuming alcohol, and now marijuana is the big thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they've given the opiates, so to speak, to everyone, but it's a personal choice whether you avoid the opiates and the enslavement, or you become optimized spiritually, physically, and of course, mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Robert, do you see a return to more telepathic communication gradually and eventually?
Yeah, sure. Why not? That's our natural state.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. But once that level is achieved, you got to understand that privacy as we know it will no longer exist.
Right.
And if we're at that state, we probably don't have a need for privacy as we know it, right? Or a desire.
No, because you don't let people be naked, or their natural state will just not be clothes. I mean, we're only wearing.
No. I mean transparent everything.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If we're really advanced spiritually, do we have this need for? Do we have anything that we feel like we have to hide from our fellow beings?
If you do, it's not going to last very long. If you have something to hide, it's like they're going. Here's the funny thing: it already exists.
It's like we're all walking around in a virtual nudist colony at that point.
A bit like the Truman Show, but that was just whatever. That was Hollywood version again, imitating life. The benevolent beings are monitoring everything that we do and everything we think, everything we feel.
Robert, I would actually argue to that point that you're so right. You're more right than you even know. Going back to what you said about the earth shaking, we know what also happened in the off the bay of not Pearl Harbor, but Honolulu last year with the sub. They tried to hit it.
Oh, yeah.
The benevolents are literally right now protecting the world from destabilizing, because if the cabal had their druthers, we would have already been taken out.
To some extent, they really want to control or retain control over as many of us as possible. But I do think that there's a negotiation that already happened. It just isn't being announced, that they settled on a certain number. Because the benevolent beings are monitoring us for benevolent purposes,
right?
Basically to protect us, like you said. The malevolent beings have been monitoring us through etheric means, interdimensional means, through these demons and stuff. Yeah. But they also have been now monitoring us through what we call digital technologies, smartphones, and everything like that.
Yes.
Okay, so they know where we're at, and it was really obvious to them that a lot of us are going to wake up and say, I've had enough of this nonsense. I want out of the matrix, etc. I'm not going to serve the dark side anymore under false pretenses, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Trickery. And so the negotiations were made and an agreement, I think, was reached. And that's why there's going to be a separation. The duality is going to come to a screeching halt at some date certain. I don't know exactly when and then, but it has something to do with 2022, because there's a 10-year window between 2012 and 2022. And that 1987 to 2012 was really important. Those of us who's lived through it are actually in a much better position to transition into this final phase.
Great point.
Final 10-year window. But it does cut off at some point, and I do think 2022 is it.
Okay, so let me ask you something around that too. And Jeff, I haven't talked to you about this, but my wife Monica brought something up the other day, and she blew my mind. You guys remember the show 2020 on ABC?
Yeah,
I do.
So what's the symbolism of 2020? Do you think that was another foreshadow?
Well, of course, they would say it was just 2020 vision, but I see what you're getting at. That's Robert. Do you think, you're talking about these deals have been made and these negotiations have commenced and to some degree have been consummated? Does that mean that at the bottom level in this matrix that we're living in now, in this time frame that we're living in now, do we have any true sovereignty left, Robert, or is it already been decided and we just have choices that are our choice between choices that have already been decided for us? Yeah,
I mean, the dark side is going to be drawn out They have to be removed from here in order for the planet to sustain life. Those of us who choose to remain here and serve the light side are going to be given all kinds of opportunities. We're going to learn new skills or reconnect to our original potential. So that's going to be kind of an interesting transition point.
Will we
Beyond that,
be penalized if we don't elect to stay and elect to go somewhere else?
I really can't say. I think that depends on the individual. If they really are deserving of that, or they need some kind of special attention, they simply couldn't sustain themselves here. Because it's, the thing about being benevolent is you have to take everyone's needs into consideration. It's not a one size fits all, and you can't enforce enlightenment.
Right.
It's in fact, that's a kind of a very misleading term, as though we were born unenlightened.
Right.
How did that happen?
Right.
So,
well, it's too.
Religion wants to tell us that the dominant Abrahamic religion wants.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, we know that spiritually, it's practicing spiritual violence to try to awaken others. All we can do is share our truths, do what we're doing like right now. And if people receive it, if they receive it, they receive it. If they don't, it's not us to try to judge them or influence them.
Right. Well, or vice versa. I mean, that's why they say do unto others as you have them do it unto you. But the prime directive in Star Trek terms is never violate another person's free will.
Right. It's non-interference directive.
Well, it could, and it has to be for everybody.
Right.
Otherwise, it kind of deteriorates it, and then eventually nobody has it, and there's no more growth. It all becomes very static and entropy.
I have a great friend named Halo Marquise, and he has a little saying that, although it really bothers me, it's so profound. He says, if it's a rule for one thing, it's a rule for everything.
Yeah.
And that's irritating, but irritatingly true.
Yeah, because we're all connected.
We are all connected.
And again, that's probably why it feels like this level of isolation that we've been through here, the level of lies about us being somehow alone,
right?
Or that we're the only life forms, or just it's somehow. And I don't know what this is about the different races. That on the face of it, it's just completely insane. There's only one human race,
right?
And yet there's been various iterations of humans,
right
here, but they're still humans. So why try and break it down other than to try and divide us up, confuse us?
Right.
Let me ask you this, Robert. I know you're very familiar with Helena Blavatsky, and I was actually talking to a guy the other day who's very knowledgeable about, reads at the levels that we do and very also spiritually aware. And he said he actually believes now that the fifth root race, which is we're in the fourth root race now, which is, whatever they call it, the Aryan, Teutonic or whatever, the fifth root race has no religions. It's it's one color of like a olive brown or an olive yellow, which is, universally would be no ethnicity, no race, just one human race. You think that actually might be, she might, I know she was a theosophist, but do you think that she might have had some insights? And the reason I ask you that before you answer is because remember what Pike, and again, I'm not saying Pike is right, but Pike said that the Third World War would be the war to end all religions and creeds. And that what came out of that would be the human race again. And that would enter us the golden age. So do you believe that there's any truth to that and that we do have to go through that? And that's the dark times that you're foreshadowing?
Well, we've been through some pretty dark stuff, man. But I'm just saying it's going to get a little bit darker before the dawn of this.
But do you think the darker stuff, again, I'm just asking your opinion. Do you think the darker stuff is the Third World War?
I'm sure the dark side would like to do something like that. I know they like you look at Georgia Guidestones and stuff like that. They've always got these crazy little plans, but they're always the same thing. They're very limited, unsustainable, unrealistic, very demented. So I know they're going to be resisting this change. One of the things that I know that the people can't quite wrap their minds around, the Jedi message that I delivered on YouTube to the world is that the militaries, all the militaries of this world will be disbanded by the benevolent beings. And that'll be replaced by an automated defense system for the entire planet. as it should.
Good idea.
As it is.
In your opinion?
Jeff, was it you that said, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it you that said the last time we did a podcast that all of the nuclear missiles have already been disabled and it's just a fraud to keep us in fear?
I didn't say that, no. But do you think that's a good idea, Robert, that all the military be disbanded and, for lack of a better term, an AI overprotector be installed?
Yeah. Now, the thing about AI is really, I think correctly should be called synthetic life forms.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay. And it can be assigned a task.
Absolutely.
It is very specific. It doesn't just go run amok like Skynet in Terminator. Okay. We can build that, or I should say, I know of systems like that have already been built.
Yeah.
On the flip side,
it drives Jay crazy, but I still think that there will be some benevolent uses of synthetic intelligence in our future.
Yeah. It's already been done, is what I'm trying to tell you, and it's not a big deal. Synthetic life forms are just it's quite natural, although it's synthetic.
But Robert, back to that point, do you think though that based on what you're saying, do you think that the benevolents have already disabled all the nuclear missiles?
They limit the usage of everything right now. All the plans that they're going to, it's like you see kids playing with matches, you take them away.
Oh, good point.
And because they're going to burn themselves or the building down, and you can't have that. And so that's not even a violation of their free will. That's just protecting them from themselves at that moment. Those are extreme circumstances. So, but yeah, the military has, unfortunately, there's a lot of good people in the military, and I do appreciate their service. However, a lot of them have been tricked, like we all have, into doing things that are not really serving humanity,
right,
or even the nation that they think they're serving. And they're very. It's kind of very easy to manipulate. The dark side has done a masterful job of doing that. We see that all the time these days, and it's sad because I do respect military and law enforcement. I know it's a difficult job, but it's been exploited to the point now where it's just they're basically they're dangerous. They're dangerous for all life. So yeah, too many weapon systems and not enough integrity, I guess, if you really had to make a soundbite.
Very well stated, Robert. I agree with you 100%. Weird question, maybe bringing it back down to earth a little bit.
Go ahead.
And this has always bugged me, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it. Why do you think that they are making a move in the United States to do away with the teaching of cursive writing?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, many states have already stopped teaching it, and it seems like a national effort to stop the teaching of cursive writing. Do you think there's anything beyond just not wanting to spend the money on it?
Yeah, it sounds like my first impression is that it's because it's harder for AI to read it.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, AI can learn it.
I knew you'd have an interesting answer, Rob.
The post office already has a system that kind of does this, but I don't think the OCR is capable of fully understanding, because everybody's
What's an OCR, Robert?
Optical character recognition system. It's kind of old, but it's improved a lot.
Yeah.
But that's for type. Like I said, the only one I could think of is the post office, where you write the address, name and address.
Yeah.
And it's always a little bit weird. It's individuals writing their own style, and the computers have a harder time reading it.
Interesting. And so you don't sense any malevolent intent behind that?
Yeah, well, other than, as I said, the AI systems that have been developed here recently are not for our benefit.
No.
It's designed to control us as much and surveil us as much as possible.
Gotcha.
So that is the flip side. It just, it's like, it's a synthetic life form that works for the dark side.
Right.
That's all it is.
Well, the one thing, Robert, and this is an awesome podcast, by the way. The one thing that Jeff and I have been talking about a lot, and I've been doing a lot of podcasts, like in my side of the world in the optimization space with really leading researchers, and the onslaught by the cabal, the dark forces, the dark brotherhood, whatever we call them, the archons, is now at full throttle, right? Like everything has been accelerated from the technology. You know, I haven't had this conversation with Jeff either, but guys, if you're wearing an Apple Watch, holy moly, do not
there he is. Two? Watch. You got two on?
No, I don't have any Apple Watches.
Do not wear
I see. I'm sorry. I couldn't tell from here.
I just did a podcast research with one of the world's leading researchers on the EMF that comes out of these things. If you wear an Apple Watch to bed, it completely disrupts polyphasic sleep.
Oh my God.
Interesting. Would that be the same for the Samsung version, or is it just Apple specific?
Anything that is a wearable tech
okay.
is an enslavement tool.
I don't even wear watches anymore. That's just interesting that you say that.
I can see it now. I see what you're saying.
So the point is where I'm going with this is they're full throttle, full scale assault from every area of the environment. We know the food is poisoned. We know our air is poisoned. We know the technology poisons us. You should be wearing these when you're on your screens, TVs. We talked about that, 4K, 8K. Now we know the wearables. Robert, if it's so full scale assault, and as you said earlier in the show, they're in a panic, their time is running out. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to read the tea leaves and think that whatever is going to happen is not that far away.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, the message that came through me was that the life support systems are going to fail here pretty soon. And that is why they have to intervene, you know, but in a benevolent way. And of course, some people are going to see it as, they'll try and spin it as, you know, an invasion.
A blue beam.
Or a violation or whatever. I don't know. I mean, they're going to try all kinds of nonsense. But I think by the time, people at this point are pretty well aware of false flags and how it works and why. And so they'll try it. But I think what's been happening, every time they do one of these things, it actually serves to wake up more people.
It does. It does. Robert, if I could be so bold, and if you feel like doing it, what would you say are 3 or 4 things that you would recommend in light of all this that people be involved and actively doing now to get ourselves in a place of preparation?
It's on every level of our being. We have to be prepared in order to make the transition smoother, I guess you'd call it. As I told you before, being calm, kind, and creative really helps. It helps. It increases one's level of resonance in the midst of the matrix dissonance.
Right.
And those are, like I said, those are things that are not political. They're not religious. They're not financial. Typically, you can be calm, kind, and creative without spending a nickel. So, but the bottom line is you have to choose to do this. And I think you can't force people to do that. You can discuss it with people. You can maybe share shows like this with them or other things, whatever. If they're interested in all, this is, I guess the reason we're bringing this up is because time's running short.
Right.
For not only individuals to prepare, but possibly help their loved ones.
Right.
To have some kind of put this into context so it's not so shocking. But I don't know. It's sort of like you're asking for a New Year's resolution. I realize that that's not we confuse this. Resolution is something like you say, "Oh, I'm not going to smoke and then drink or whatever." But the goals are something completely different. That's
absolutely.
You know, and everybody needs goals.
What you just said already is profound.
Oh, okay. I'll shut up.
But really, and I mean, it's almost like that old song back in the 80s. Maybe it was a little bit early. It said, "Don't worry, be happy."
Oh, right. Bobby McFerrin, I think he was.
Bobby McFerrin, yeah.
Yeah. That was a great song, and it's dropped out of existence. I never hear it. I never see it anywhere. I guess you could dial it up on YouTube. And
Derek just said in the chat room, help disrupt, and I have to paraphrase because I went past it, disrupt hate or evil by loving more.
Well, of course.
The sure.
Teaches, love, kindness, forgiveness, acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hermes was I sent you this stuff, Jay. For people who don't know, Hermes, Thoth, Daugherty, whatever you call him, he was a Jedi. They were the Jedi and the Magi. Like I said, they were real.
Absolutely.
I don't know exactly what their relationship was with Jesus, but whatever it was, I'm pretty sure it had something to do with his so-called lost years when he was in training.
Right. There's a book for you, Robert. Jesus was a Jedi.
Seriously? Oh, I'm not going to write it. This guy,
Jeff, you can write it.
That book I sent you guys is kind of like that. It's making the case, but I don't think he couldn't have been the first one here.
No.
he may have been in another lifetime been a master head of the, starting the order, but that's look, there's plenty of different orders like that do the same thing.
Yeah.
Under different names, different times. It's all about being of service.
Right.
To the force, or to the cosmos, to creation.
Right. I guess the big question, Robert, is can you be a fan of Star Trek and still be a Jedi?
That's a good question. I'd have to say I really didn't like either one of those things. Because I knew it was fake. I actually met Shatner. I think I told you about that story. Got to know him a little bit down at the beach in Malibu. Nothing like Captain Kirk. Nothing like that guy at all. But in fact, I think he was doing TJ Hooker at the time, so maybe that's why he came off more like that to me. But
he didn't jump on your car and like grab onto the hood and hold on, did he?
No. The thing is, look, I realize that stuff is completely fabricated, and it's not. Why do we need to go out and fight war in space? We're busy doing it down here. And
isn't that a great statement? Yeah.
But that's one of the things I've been focused on last year was addressing the so-called Space Force.
Yeah.
That Trump wants to take credit for, tongue in cheek. I think he must know that he didn't create it.
No, of course.
Okay, because historically it's already in the public record, and I was able to pull that out and report it on my show and on my website.
There's a lot of weird stuff about that because they made Pence the vice president of all people in charge of it.
Yeah, because I think the vice president has something to do with leading up NASA. If you look at the org chart for NASA, he's actually the head of NASA. Most people don't know that. Hold on.
That's interesting. Why you take a drink, Robert? Since you brought up Shatner and Jay brought up TJ Hooker, I was on the Paramount lot at one time and happened to be in the commissary with a buddy of mine, and Shatner was in there. Mm-hmm. And I just walked up to him and said, "Mr. Shatner, I want to thank you for your work." And he's famous for not looking at fans, quote unquote. Yeah. So he's doing his shopping, and he just said, "Star Trek or Hooker?" And I said, "Well, actually, sir, I'm just a William Shatner fan." And he actually stopped, put down his orange juice, looked at me and said, "Now that's different," and shook my hand.
Yeah, he's taken a lot of flack over the years. I mean, that's a very cutthroat business. So when I asked him about it back in the day, I was a young man in my 20s and Hollywood, people everywhere. And I was thinking about going into that business. And I just asked him for his opinion on it. And he says, as a career path, he says, "Are you competitive?" I said, "I think so." He goes, "I'm going to ask you again. Are you competitive?" And I said, wow. I mean, the way he was asking me, I said, I'm not sure. And he goes, "Well, if you're not sure, don't do it. You have to be extremely competitive to make it in this business."
Among other things.
Among other
things, right. Yeah.
And that's said from the guy that's probably the hardest working guy in Hollywood.
Well, speaking of, how about last night's comment from Christian Bale? You guys all saw that, right?
I did not see it. I don't watch TV.
I don't watch TV.
It's on the internet. It's on the internet. Yeah. Hail Satan. Why not? Sure.
Was it just tongue in cheek, or was it real? Opinions?
Oh, I'm sure those guys in Hollywood all know about Lucifer and Satan.
What did he say?
Gregori's.
He said, "I want to give credit to Satan for the role for playing."
Dick Cheney. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean but I do think it's a bit of a dog whistle in that this is alerting all his comrades on the dark side. That he's paying homage to the father of all lies.
There's no doubt about it, in my opinion. People laugh about it and they think it's all a joke, but I know full well what's going on in Hollywood. I know you do too, Robert, and I know you do too, Jeff. And there's
God, we can't even trust Batman anymore.
Hollywood. You absolutely know at that level in Hollywood. I think that it was, tongue in cheek, but he definitely was, like you said, it was a dog whistle.
Yeah, it's a double entendre for sure, huh?
Yeah. Look, in the old days, our ancestors will call this casting a spell.
Right.
Now we cast for a movie. We cast the characters that then go on to influence us by through enchantment. Totally. That's what it is, not entertainment. Ultimately, I think the better term is entrainment. Right. It's all designed to get us to brainwaves to entrain. So it's all about mind control. But I said, in the past, that was called casting a spell. And that actually was in the news right after Trump got elected, that covens of witches were openly saying we're casting spells on Trump and all his followers.
Wow.
Pretty wild stuff.
Do you think, Robert, it's possible, and Jeff and I have talked about this, and there's really probably no way to know, but because Trump was associated with Hollywood and has had many shows in that part of the world, do you believe that he could be MK Ultra himself?
I think everybody is to some degree. That it wasn't just for a few people. I mean, targeted individuals.
It's so true.
Are all targeted. Okay, that's what it is being here in the Matrix. It's it's just a level of various degrees. So the higher you rise up in society, the more targeted you become.
Right.
Not all that, but just that's a general rule. But yeah, sure, why not? Of course he's,
So if Trump started totally benevolent, as we all three thought that he did, and that he had white hats in the military that were puppeteering him, is it possible now that the cabal and the dark forces and the black magicians have literally turned the direction of him?
Yeah, I address this in both of my books about UFOs and extraterrestrials in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found doing that years of research and reporting was that they call it Beltway fever. And I knew it would happen to Trump. In fact, it was reported. They said he had a cabin fever.
Wow.
Okay, from being stuck in the White House too long. But technically, and I'm not making this up, you can look it up for yourself. It's in the public record. They call it the Beltway fever. It's a magic circle around Washington, D.C., where you say casting a spell. It's a ritual where you set up a certain pattern, energy pattern that affects people. This, in Masonic terms, it's called I think it's called the working. You get a board and you come.
The board.
I think they call it a working, but anyway,
it's called the working. It's correct.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So, but they also call, so it's either called Beltway fever or Potomac fever. And what that is when a person,
I've heard Pat Buchanan refer to it as Potomac fever when I was working for him.
Yeah, it's one or the other, but it's the same thing. What it means is when an individual who has, let's say, become elected or whatever, they're normal person before they move into the magic circle, and after they go there, their behavior starts to change. And then some people would say, well, that's just because there's a lot of political power being going on here, and money and influence, and it goes to your head. Well, no, it's actually much darker than that. It is an absolute energy field that when you go into it, the longer you're there, the stronger the effect is over the individual. And why is that important? Because now that individual, let's say, who represents a district, is now misrepresenting a district because they're under the influence of the dark side within the magic circle.
Yeah, they quit representing their district because they've been too long in the district
Of Columbia or whatever you.
I mean, it's crazy. If you guys look at his tweets, and Jeff and I have talked about this, Robert, we're just talking tonight, but in the last month, nothing has made sense that's come out of Donald Trump's mouth on his Twitter account.
I know.
It's literally like he's completely been turned.
Well, I don't think drinking, aspartame all day, every day, excuse me. That's gotta mess with you because it is toxic, among other things. That's I don't know how anybody can survive that, but he is, and also the lack of sleep, the stress, and being bombarded, as you say. So
and he's not a young man either.
No, he's not. What is he, 70?
Yeah, 70. But his spirit is strong. He's very determined.
He is.
He obviously has a vision. Okay. And he's willing to do whatever it takes in order to achieve that goal. He's always been very goal oriented. And I do think the man likes a challenge. He certainly behaves like it. He never shrinks from a challenge. I mean, this latest deal where this woman, this Palestinian, is calling him an MFer, I think that actually fuels him. I watched a documentary on him on Netflix recently, and I could see the pattern. When people tell him he can't do something.
Well, wasn't he supposed to speak tonight? Again, none of us watched.
Oh, yeah, it's coming. It's coming. He's going
tomorrow night, Tuesday night at 9.
Oh, because of the football game. Yeah, we can't.
And I got to say it. I don't care. That lady got elected, and she does that right after getting sworn in. They should have taken her right from that place, kicked her in the ass out the door, and had her district revote. We can't have people like that leading this country on either side of the aisle.
Why wouldn't they just slap her?
I mean, a piece of lead behind the ear wouldn't be out of the question.
No, Jeff.
I know.
That doesn't solve the problem.
I know. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm glad you're
She's
here to
not.
keep me
I
on
got it. Was
track.
me. I put it in your head.
You did. You
Yeah.
pushed me, Jay. You saw it, Robert. He pushed me.
But seriously, guys, I mean, let's talk about this for 1 second. I mean,
Okay.
And I take that back. I didn't mean that. That was
Democrats
totally.
or whoever they are, the cabal, whatever they are saying, and again, your guest, Jeff, Wayne made me research it, and he's right. They have a way to impeach Trump. The law is incredibly esoteric and complex, but they now have a back door to take Trump out. So if Trump does do what he's been saying, postulating that he's going to activate national emergency measures, he's going to build the wall through national emergency because we're being invaded. We're going to have revolution or at worst civil unrest in this country.
I'm on record as saying they will. Maybe they'll impeach him, but they're not going to remove him from office. I'm on record saying that. But you're right, Robert. We do have to. I mean, when you've got people that have just got finished being sworn in to the House of Representatives saying we're going to impeach the MFer, you got civil unrest.
Hold on. Let's clarify the matter here, please. When most people don't know this, that individual was taking an oath. They didn't just swear to God.
Right.
They swore to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign, domestic. Those are not empty words.
Right.
That individual was not honoring her oath at that moment after taking the oath on a Quran to uphold the Constitution, and then going and saying these kind of things with that particular vitriol against the office. If you have a disagreement with that individual, that's fine. You do that privately, but you don't disgrace the office, because that isn't in the Constitution. You have no constitutional right to do that. There's a lot of different. The amazing thing about the Constitution, really, for me, is the negative liberties that are written into it that actually protect us from tyranny. They knew. And we all know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So demented individuals that want to go into government and use that to manipulate everybody else and become tyrants. The Constitution is designed fundamentally to protect us from that happening. So it's not a small thing for a person to swear that oath and then basically act like they just that they didn't even understand it, or they're not going to uphold that oath. It's a violation of trust. It's a violation of ethics. And yes, they will be held accountable. Unfortunately, it won't be in the current court systems because it's totally corrupt.
Right.
And that's what set me off, Robert. You're extremely correct. You just expressed it in a lot more professional manner than I did.
So Robert, so there was also, you probably saw what you just said. You hit the nail right on the head, the proverbial head. You said there will be something with the courts. Is this why Trump is now getting involved in all of these civil tribunals? They changed the law. We talked about it on the last show, Jeff. I mean, the system he knows is completely corrupt. The system of jurisprudence in the United States is completely corrupt. So is it going to go to a system of military tribunals or military justice? It looks like it is.
It's going to be a different system. Yes. I don't know that it has to be. Here's the thing. You cannot enforce law without some sort of law enforcement. That's what they're there for. Because criminals aren't going to simply comply, go, oh, you caught us, we're sorry. Yeah, we'll stop doing it. It doesn't even work like that. Sometimes you have to use force or enforce in order to enforce the law against criminals.
Right.
And like I said, their level of criminality is putting the entire planet at jeopardy at this point. Okay, so that's why when the benevolent beings show up openly, I know they're here covertly, but when they overtly show up and say, we're here to help you, but here's the here's the stipulations, here's the requirements that you're going to have to meet in order to become part of this, whatever you call it, federation or something, Federated Republic. It's going to be, of course, it's going to be opposed by those on the dark side. But those of us who understand it, who have already had some time to think this through and make a choice, I'll just tell you, between you and me and whoever's listening, that
there's 474 people.
Oh, hey, Pete, how? Hi, guys. it's very entertaining what I did. I thought it was pretty funny too. But if you listen to that message and you actually understand it, you realize that you're being given a choice.
Yeah.
And at that point, you will make a choice.
Right.
And it will be instantly registered by the benevolent beings who are monitoring the situation.
Interesting.
Yes.
And,
so it's
and
not
I
really
spent,
heavy. Go ahead.
Sorry, Robert. I spent 6 years living under the UCMJ Uniform Code of Military Justice, and I don't know that I would recommend it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, I interviewed a guy on my radio show. His name is Commander Cobra. That's not his real name, but he's 20 years active, and he's currently retired, but he's still active.
Yeah, he can be called in. Yeah, high level, right?
Well, he also is working with different contractors and other things. So we've become friends, and that's ultimately how I ended up on KGRA. He's got a show there, and the bottom line is the reason I'm making this overture to you guys is I'm going to put that link up on my website at the homepage at unicusmagazine.com. You should really listen, because we had a very in-depth, very transparent conversation about what it means to serve in the military. Again, the military are all sworn to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. All the military, everybody is supposed to do that. So I was asking him some things about, very respectfully, how do you countermand an unlawful order? And it was just very interesting, because he said there are means to do this. And sometimes you have to actually use some discernment, use your own judgment. So they're not all automatons. And I also asked him if, there it is. Yeah, it's actually looking a lot better these days, guys.
It looks great.
I mean, if you guys don't go to Robert's site, he has literally created the library of Unicus. I mean,
the library.
There's so many amazing books that are free. As long as you can click and download.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a massive resource of truth.
Thanks. I mean, well, look, I can't say that I endorse everything that I put on there. It's just out there for people to examine to their own conclusions. I'm not promoting anything. Although last time I was here, I really learned from that mistake. Thank you. The website is definitely improved. It's something I spent a lot of time on. I'm still learning some things about design. I think that's kind of important. How you present the information is sometimes it turns people off if it doesn't look pretty or a certain standard. But what he said about as you said, the code of military justice, of course it can be perverted and distorted, and it is. It's badly manipulated. But generally speaking, most of the people that serve in the military, and I think you know this from being there, they actually have a very I do think they're benevolent. I think that they're altruistic in the sense that the Constitution, again, the negative liberties, it's the thing I respect about Americans is that we are typically on defensive. We're not going out and overtly conquering. A lot of times, yes, you can make the case that we were going places and so-called nation building in places we shouldn't be meddling. But generally speaking, we are a defensive force, and usually a force for good, in the sense that we are not going out and just intentionally enslaving people and being cruel to them. That's my impression of it.
That's true. And I will say this about the UCMJ: it's extremely efficient, and it's not bogged down. There's a thing in there that I got a little bit too familiar with. It's called the Article 15. It's commanding officers non-judicial punishment. And if you do something stupid, your commanding officer can give you, a week of picking up trash or a week of making little rocks out of big rocks. And he can do it with this swipe of a pen. So it becomes very, very efficient. So you could take the individual that decided to take an oath and then break the oath and say, oh, well, guess what? You get 90 days working in the homeless kitchen in your district before you can take office. And they could do it with the stroke of a pen. So the UCMJ is very efficient in that sense.
And I think there's a peer pressure too. And it's actually increasing because of social media now. People are not as compartmentalized as they used to be within the military system. So there's a greater connectivity, and I do think information is flowing better. And I do think that the peer pressure is something that, because we see, look, I told you that's what I'm doing. Social compliance only works because these days, because social media. I see it all the time. In fact, there's a place here in Hong Kong at the university there that this is all they do. They go out and they spy on factories, and then they put out these reports every year about certain violations that are going on. So what happens is people say, well, and for example, Apple, they contract with Foxconn, is one of the biggest factories in the world. There's been a lot of suicides there recently, and it hit the news. And so naturally people say, hey, Apple, what the hell are you guys doing about it?
Yeah.
And so what I heard another talk show host talking about it. He said he had some very interesting insight. He was at a party somewhere and somebody mentioned it, and that President of China figured out how to help Foxconn. He hired the head of the Beijing Zoo to go. I'm not kidding. This is crazy. It sounds crazy, but he hired the head of the Beijing Zoo to go to that factory, it's a small city unto itself, and help them modify the behavior of the humans that are basically working like robots there.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Yep. Well, I think they call it Skinner, I guess, was the guy in the U.S. that what they call behavior modification through punishment, reward, punishment, reward. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that this is not going in the right direction, in my opinion. And but the potential. See, this is why I remain optimistic. I know we have a greater potential. It's just how do we achieve it, individually and collectively? How do we remove these impediments that have been put in our path? And I like I said, it really has to come to an end, or it'll just end itself because it isn't sustainable.
I agree with you 100%, Robert. And it's so in our the conspiratorium, we get so much negativity and such a profound sense of pessimism. That's one of the reasons I like talking with you and reading your work, is because I always come away with it feeling like I have a kindred spirit, because I get laughed at for having such a profound sense of optimism. But when I experience it and see it and read it from you, it supports my own convictions. And I think that we're right, Robert. Even though we're the minority, we're right.
We are, guys. I mean, we're in a three-dimensional realm, and the power of manifestation is at our fingertips. It's how much and how hard do you, not hard, but like how much do you want to prepare, and how much massive and decisive action do you want to take to manifest whatever reality you want to create. I mean, I'm living manifesting reality, and anyone that watches the show who believes in themselves and loves and trusts themselves can manifest their reality as well. I mean, it's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, part of the victim mentality, that's got to stop. Yeah. I mean, you can't force somebody into it, but I think it is like a temporary form of insanity.
By the way, that's the Campbell primary directive right there, Rick.
It is, yeah. And but the real danger in that, not only does it diminish your ability to tap into your true potential and nurture that, but it also makes you vulnerable to manipulation by so-called authority figures or saviors or whatever.
Right. That's exactly right.
That's a trap. That for sure is.
I feel like
empowering.
That's an amazing statement. I do feel like that the younger generations of today are more under that, guys, because that's the way education's gone, as we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Not to say that older people can't fall into the same trap, because there's plenty of people who are 50 years old who have victim mindsets, but it just seems like the younger generations today have been conditioned by school, indoctrination camp technically, to become victims.
Yeah. And it could be somewhat, I can understand the allure of being able to give up responsibility and have someone take care of you. But the problem with that is that you've given up responsibility. Now someone can and will take care of you, and not always in line with your desires, is certainly not in line with your highest and best good, I don't think.
Right. To me, that's what sin really means.
Bingo.
You think about the original sin was we were tricked, but then again, she agreed to it.
Right.
She was tricked, but she didn't have to agree to that, eating the apple or whatever that metaphor is about. Yeah. So we're all faced with that. We're constantly look, I'll tell you something interesting. You guys could probably relate to this as talk show hosts and just good people in general. Last year when I was going down that path and I was on the show and I was starting to actually feel good, it's like I'm getting feedback. They're like, yeah, Babaji, he's here to save us. He's the good guy. And you're somehow connected to that. Oh my God, and then, well, it's stroking my ego. It's making me feel good. I think I'm doing good. And there's that temptation to go down that path and really exploit it, but at some point when I fully realized that it was all a lie, if I had taken one more step down that path for my own, self-aggrandizement, fame, fortune, or whatever, I really don't like having fans. I mean, I'm not asking people to follow me or anything. I don't want that. I don't need it. But there's this temptation. There's I don't know what it is about us here in the Matrix. It's like, hey, you want to be famous, don't you? You want to be successful. All you got to do is trick all these people. They'll follow you around like sheep.
Right.
Well, thank you. I want to be able to go to bed at night and or wake up in the morning and actually look at myself and go, you're okay. I like you, as opposed to the other thing. I got to live with myself.
It begs the question. It's a profound point, because it begs the question, and Jeff and I talk about this all the time, Robert. How many people who have risen, quote unquote, to the top of the matrix in all walks of life, celebrities, politicos, even athletes, have not truly proverbially sold their soul to get there?
Yeah, we have to compromise. I mean, it's in the news. I was telling you, Jeff, off the air, that's in the news. There was some guy in Nepal. The people are looking up to me. Oh, he's like some spiritual guru guy, and turns out now he's under investigation for possibly killing some of his devotees because they were going to expose him for sexually and otherwise abusing the rest of his so-called flock. We also have John of God in Brazil. That dude is definitely possessed. Definitely possessed. You see when they put him into the police station, how things started freaking out. The electronics and lights and things were just like acting crazy.
It's almost like a movie, but it's really happening.
Oh no, it's very real. So he was anyway. These are examples of how things have been operating, and these guys are all being exposed. And it's thank God, or the gods, or whatever, thank the benevolent beings, angelic hosts, that they're actually helping us to help ourselves out of this mess right now.
Absolutely.
So,
Jay, what are some final thoughts that you have as we get ready to wrap this up?
Yeah. What is a timeline for you, Robert? I know you said 2022, but you feel like in the next 2 to 4 to 5 years, all of us need to be doing the things that we talk about, the Hermetic teachings, loving, or you got the three, what is it? You have kindness, creation. What was the other one? But love.
Calm, kind, creative. Yeah.
Calm, kind, and creative.
Kind, and creative.
Yeah, it's very easy.
But beyond that, where do you see beyond that, what else can do? I mean, Jeff asked, but what else can we do to prepare besides living that way? I mean, I know we can't help others wake up, but just to be aware, I mean, just kind of know.
Well, we can help them. We just can't do it for them. There's the difference, because it is, in some regards, it is a test. And again, we do learn from our mistakes. So it's okay. People do make mistakes. What am I going to do? Are you asking me personally what I'm going to do in the next few years?
I mean, we're just going to keep doing what we do and live our life.
Yeah. It's going to get more intense. Look, one of the things that this Maori shaman from New Zealand was telling me, he said, these guys, the behind the scenes that are doing what they're doing in concert with the angelic host, they are not going to give up. They've actually increased their efforts.
Right.
And they were very active on November 11th. These guys were doing things at sacred sites around the world and wherever that energy was coming from. So they're completely committed to the cause or the mission or whatever you want to call it. And one of the things he told me too was that it's very interesting terminology. He said, the Matrix is based on a horror scope, a scope of horrors.
Ooh.
Yeah, which I thought, man, language is important. And that was so specific. It was so specific. And he said, that's the old pattern. He says it's been overlaid on a natural system. It's a totally artificial system that was created. I call it the scary go round. You just constantly freaking us out and keeping us.
The horror scope was created and put on top of a natural.
Yeah. In order to keep us in dissonance as opposed to resonance. So the new what do you call it, calendar system, because that's what a horoscope is, just as a calendar, right? But that's part of the working. It's the circuit board. It's the dominant pattern has been based on dissonance. Well, that is going to change this year, starting mid-year.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Do you think that comes for people watching and listening right now? Do you think, and it's just my prediction, but do you feel that it comes in the form of some sort of a financial collapse / currency reset? That's first.
I don't know what's going to come first, but I'll tell you this much. The system is it's beyond broke. It's like but the reason is because the black budget,
right,
not just the U.S. but the shadow government of the world is connected to off-world systems.
Right.
And Catherine Austin Fitz has done more than anybody. I mean, Joseph.
Yeah, her and Joseph Farrell too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out that the trillions of dollars that are missing are not missing.
Right.
They just don't want to tell us what they've done with it.
Somebody knows where they are.
That's a big difference there. There's a big difference. It didn't just evaporate.
Yeah, no, they actually audited them. For the first time this year, last year, and you saw their report. They said we don't know where it is.
Well, yeah, because I think most of it has been off-world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why not? Because that's just how it goes. When you have commerce, there's an exchange of things, and it doesn't mean just because the money was moved to a different country doesn't mean it's gone. It's just somewhere else. And this is what's happened. There's these interplanetary deals that have been cut here in this battlefield, this whole entire solar system. That's the other thing about Farrell. His books are pretty amazing. His lectures about the cosmic war.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense to me. Brings in some details that I didn't have before. But the bottom line is this: we don't know for sure exactly how the house of cards here is going to come down. It doesn't really matter how it happens. It's
Was
just
that the name of the Spacey show? That's interesting. You'd use that.
Oh yeah. His little house of cards fell. He's trying to put it back together.
That's a guy who's gone south. Yeah.
Well, everybody but look, he's not the only one. Everybody in Hollywood is all the dirty laundry is being aired. Look, that one lady.
Robert, are they all dirty in Hollywood? The people that we know, are they all dirty?
Majority.
Yeah, it appears that way. I was going to say the lady that exposed Harvey Weinstein, Asia Argento or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Turns out she's very much in the dark side and had done something with like an underage boy in Marina Del Rey and all this crap. So it's like, everybody is pointing fingers, but the bottom line is we all have skeletons or whatever. These people who've cut deals with the dark side, as I say, not only they'll be held accountable, but more importantly, they're going to be exposed. And why that's important, because there's a certain level of trust that they cultivated over a period of time here with us, these agents of the dark side. And they were doing that in order to lure us in, to seduce us, to trick us, manipulate us, to control us. But as the trust is broken, as the spell is broken and people become disenchanted and they wake up, it's like, well, some people are going to be pissed or some people will freak out because they don't exactly know how, what do you do now? Yeah. That's I think is really the scary thing, especially for people that are sort of happy with what the Matrix has given them.
Right.
They can't conceive of something else or something better.
Right.
It's like that movie Enchanted. I think Barry Josephson made the Cinderella character falls into the middle of New York City and she's still trying to live like she's in the fairy tale. And it just doesn't work exactly the way that she thinks it should.
Yeah. I mean, the fairy tale is really a freaking nightmare. And that's why waking up to that, and it's going to be a shock, but it's part of the healing process. Like our body, when we're sick, it gets a fever, you feel a lot of pain, swelling, whatever. But ultimately, when that's resolved and you go back to a state of health, you feel good again and you do good.
Yep.
Jeff, I think every person in Hollywood is either truly guilty or guilty by association. And when I say guilty by association, they have allowed things, they look the other way.
Look the other way, yeah.
Well, yeah, either that or you get ostracized.
Exactly.
Right.
You can't make it unless you're part of the system.
And you're talking about, they don't get a role, but you got to remember the way those people put roles on the table is by getting roles in movies.
Exactly. No, it's totally true, dude.
Yeah. Robert, what a profound visit with you, as always. I really appreciate every time that you make time in your busy schedule to join us from all the way across the world. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff and Jay. Appreciate your friendship and all the work you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely consider you a friend, and it's an honor. You as well, Jay. It's great to be able to do this together, and it's great to have great people on like Robert Stanley here. Robert, once again, tell everybody how they can get in touch with your work, please.
Oh, the only place I know of is my website, unicusmagazine.com. It's spelled UNICUS magazine.com. A lot of free information there. And you can also email me if you feel compelled to do that. There's links to all kinds of stuff, and it's changing. And yeah, please take advantage of it.
Absolutely. As we say goodbye to the people in the chat room, thank you so much for being here. It's not much of a show if you're not here. We'll look forward to seeing you at Unicus Magazine. We'll look forward to see you on Jay's website, and looking forward to seeing you on this YouTube as well in the future. Thanks so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you again real soon.